Hey guys, I hear there's an election coming up soon here in the United States. I hear it's going to be really big, too. Now, if there's one thing I know about elections, especially big ones, they can really screw up your account if you don't have a plan in place. So let's put a plan in place. Happy United States election season, traders. If you all remember back in the Forex news video I did, I said that it is generally a really good idea to avoid major elections in the 8 major pairs altogether, completely. But I didn't really specify beyond that. And now that we're here in one of the biggest elections of my country's history, also seeing as how elections like this typically affect most currencies out there, we need to drill down a little further and put a real plan in place. Our accounts depend on it. So before we do anything, disclaimer, I'm just a guy on YouTube who gives advice. I'm not licensed to do anything. Take that for what it is. But also understand these things as well. You guys know, I either make videos for brand new traders, like the Big Banks Part 2 video I did a little while back. Shout out to 98% of you who understood that wasn't really for experienced traders. 2% of you flipped out, but the rest of you got that good. To where this video here is going to be on the other side. If you are not already a no-nonsense Forex trader and you have seen most of the material I have put out, this may not make a lot of sense to you, but that's okay. You should come join us. I'm going to put the beginner's video down below. Actually, what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to put the link to the homepage down below because that kind of gives you an overview of what we believe here at the channel. And then the beginner's video is embedded on that page. So even if you have experience trading Forex already, if you'd like to see how we do it, that is exactly where you should start because that's going to guide you through the material in the best order. Now, if you have your own personal approach as to how to handle elections, that's great. I'm not sure what you're doing here, but you are free to watch and see how I propose no-nonsense Forex traders handle what's about to come up. But what's about to come up is very political. You guys know, I say it all the time, we remain politically agnostic here at No Nonsense Forex. So if you have the urge to spray political feces on this video, I'm just going to flat out block you, even if you're trying to be funny about it. There are millions of other videos you can go to right now if you want to put your political opinions up there. This is not the place. While everybody else is out there running around with their hair on fire because of politics, we here at the channel sit back, take a nice 1,000-foot view on everything, including politics, and then decide which way the winds are blowing and then make our moves accordingly. And that's what this video is primarily going to be about. So in this video, we're going to put an actual plan in place. Hopefully there will be no questions remaining once this video is done, especially in regards to this coming election right now. But this template that I'm going to give you can really carry over into the other 8 major currencies too when you have a presidential election, prime minister, or something kind of an outlier like a Brexit election, things like that. So if you've ever wondered how to exactly handle these things in regards to your own personal account, use this video as a guide. And then at the end, we're also going to get into the other markets we talk about here because there's protocols for that as well. And there's going to be protocols for buy and hold investments too. So we're really going to cover everything. Because if you don't have a plan in place, the losses during times like this can be instant and they can be tremendous. And I would really hate to see you guys undo so much work just because you were careless for a week and a half. So we're really going to avoid that. And what it really comes down to at the end of the day is deciding whether or not you have control over your own account. At any given time, traders, you get to decide. Are you the one who has the majority of control over your own account? Or are you going to purposely relinquish that control to somebody else? All right. Now, if you guys don't get this reference right here, that's not my fault. You're just not that cool. Blame your parents. But it comes down to this. We avoid fundamental analysis here at No Nonsense Forex, which seems crazy to a lot of people. But we do it for a reason. When we surrender to fundamental analysis, we are giving unnecessary amounts of control over to the big banks, over to news, over to how people interpret the news. And that's a really helpless feeling. I don't know why anybody would do that voluntarily if you didn't have to. And Forex is one of those uniquely great markets to where if you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. Because fundamental analysis will manipulate your trades as much as it possibly can. And during elections, you're going to see this ratcheted up tenfold. All right, so what I'm about to propose to you seems like it's going to be a little overly cautious, a little overly conservative. But just understand, this is not the time to play around. This is the time to be overly cautious. Now, make no mistake, at no given time do we have full control over our accounts. It's not like that. But we have the majority of it. You know, we get to take the wheel. Now, if I'm using an analogy, what we're taking the wheel of doesn't have any power steering. It doesn't always act the way we want it to act. You know, the roads are icy and crazy, but at least we have the wheel, and that counts for a lot. Now, during election times, we can either voluntarily give that wheel to somebody else, which is crazy, or we can just pull over to the side of the road, let everything pass, and then get back on the road when it's time. And that's what this video is going to be about. So here it is. If you're taking notes, this would be the time to really take notes. If you're not taking notes, start taking notes right now. Here is the protocol. I'm actually going to start with non-USD pairs. What to do if you have an election in Australia, for example, or if there's some kind of breakaway vote going on anywhere else in the world that seems to be major to you. Here's how you handle it. What you're going to want to do is whatever trades you have going on currently, winning, losing, break even, doesn't matter. 4 trading days prior to the election, so you eliminate weekends, you are going to want to shut everything down. You may not want to, but this is the protocol. Caution is key here, okay? And then you will let the storm pass, and you will not resume trading until 4 trading days after the election day. So 4 and 4. And then once that is passed, you take a look at the situation. Has the situation calmed down? Are things getting back to normal? If the answer is yes, well, then you go ahead and resume trading on that day. And I'll explain why this is in a moment, but let's move on to United States dollar pairs. When you have something like this happening in the United States, it's everybody out of the pool. Shut down everything. Now, there's the old saying, when the United States sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. And this is definitely the case here. We're going to go to the charts in a moment. I'm going to show you why this is. But every trade you have open, shut it down, and then resume 4 trading days later. Now, this particular election may be an outlier in this regard. We'll talk about that in a moment, too. But let's talk about why I go with this 4 and 4, okay? First of all, before the elections, you have a lot of positioning going on by the big banks, by algo traders, by quant traders, by hedge funds, in preparation for what's about to happen. And sometimes this might not result in a whole lot of price action, but either way, it's something that's completely out of our hands. All right, so again, we don't want to relinquish control, we want to keep it. 4 days before does seem a little overly cautious, I know, but it's for this particular reason why I use 4 days prior. And then during the election, of course, don't trade. You would have to be an idiot to trade. Spreads are going to be crazy anyway. Nothing is going to make any sense. There's videos out there right now that actually give you strategy on how to trade Forex during election day. That is insane. Good luck if you follow channels like that. Avoidance is the key here, especially on election day. Shut it all down. If you want to look at prices just to see just how crazy price action can be on days like this, feel free, I guess, for one day. Just don't be compelled to go into your account and make any moves. You shouldn't have to do that anyway. Everything should be shut down. But this really goes without saying. Don't do anything during election day. But the 4 days after really pertains to, you're going to have a lot of overreaction going on election day. And then markets are going to open up the day after, and people are going to react to the overreaction. And you're going to get this little back and forth for a few more days before things start to normalize. So that's why I say 4 days after is typically the rule of thumb. And really, all of these things are things we have no control over. Do you really want to relinquish your account and your trading success to a bunch of things you cannot control? I certainly don't. And that's why I use the 4 and 4 method for most elections. Because at the end of the day, you guys know, the big banks pretty much do whatever they want, and they can get away with it for the most part, because you always have the financial media right there to explain it away if what they're doing doesn't seem rational. But on election day, everybody gets a free pass in big banks world. No matter how irrational, no matter how crazy they want to take price up or down at any given point, they can just blame it on the election. The votes were going this way, the votes were going that way. There's all this indecision. They have a built-in excuse. This is like their Super Bowl. They can do whatever they want. They can knock out all the stops they want. They can take price wherever they want and then knock it right back down 2 hours later. And you're about to see that little phenomenon right now as we go to the charts. So here we are on MT4. We're on the Euro-Dollar daily chart back in 2016. Got our ATR down below. And this was election day, November 9th candle. It should be. Let me make sure. Yep. So the ATR the day prior. Let's see how much this thing was moving. It says, I don't know if it's going off the screen or not, but it's 65 pips was the average true range right about here. Then on election day, open to close, it only moved a little over about 100 pips, give or take. That's not crazy. We see moves like that pretty often when it goes kind of 1.5 times ATR, a little more. Nothing unusual. But what it also did is it made sure, because why would you ever pass up on a chance to do something like this? It made sure it knocked out every order and stop above it. It went way above it. How high did it go? 275 pips, give or take, to the upside before slamming down and ending where it ended. So this is almost kind of mini flash crash style price action. But thankfully it didn't screw up our indicators too much. You had a little more volume, especially post-election, than you normally would. But that's not super unusual. But that's what's going to happen. In the most heavily traded pair out there, this doesn't look like much right now, but throughout the day, if you were looking at it, it would be absolutely chaotic. This is a situation that most traders really, really want to avoid. But we trade the daily chart. None of this really affected us if we had a good plan in place. We could let this whole thing settle and then start trading right after that. Pretty easy when you think about it, but if you are looking at a 15-minute or a 1-hour chart or anything like that on this day, it's going to be absolutely nuts and not in a good way. Let's go over to, let's stay with the euro, because I don't think the euro had much to do with this, but let's do a cross pair, the euro pound, which we like here. Now, you're like, is this the candle? No, this was an actual flash crash. If you guys remember, October 6th, 2016, there's some weird flash crash going on in the pound. I don't really remember the details on that. But we're actually going to go here to this candle. And a very similar thing happened. Now, it doesn't look as big because you got this crazy candle over here, but let's measure it. So the day before, your ATR was at about 67 pips, and you had to move down of about 120 pips, and then about the same to the upside, knocking out stops on that day. And again, this is not something you commonly see happen on a currency pair. But when you give the big banks a free pass to do whatever they want, even cross pairs get caught up in the wash too. All right, that's why I say no matter what you're trading, go ahead and shut everything down. We can even go to one of our favorites here, the Aussie Kiwi. And let's see right here. Same thing, if it's not obvious. We don't even have to measure. This was election day. It didn't. I think it only moved like 10 pips. Open to close. I mean, barely anything. But the move down to knock out stops and trigger people's short orders only to bring it right back up was very evident here as well. So we love Aussie Kiwi because it really does separate itself from a lot of the nonsense that happens further west. But even this one had crazy price action that really, really screwed over a lot of people. So that's why it's everybody out of the pool when United States elections come around. Now, if you think we had it bad, let's go to the S&P 500. A lot of these poor retail traders couldn't even do anything because the markets were closed. But there were a lot of retail traders out there that wisely thought, right about on this day or this day, putting their stops at a reasonable place in order for the market not to crash on them. And so the big banks saw those stops, knocked them out, came all the way back here, and then took the market back up without a lot of these people in it. So again, if I'm a daily chart trader or even a weekly chart trader, and I know to close out my positions before any of this chaos happens, none of this even really applies to me. I'm just looking at the bodies of the candles. And the big banks don't have the power to knock out my stops or trigger short orders that shouldn't be there. So we really are getting the best of it by avoiding all of this. We really are winning by not losing. But understand this, traders. Every election is different. I think this was a good example because in this particular case, the underdog won. Trump was not supposed to win. Like even Trump supporters didn't think he was going to win, but he did. So you have this little anomaly. I didn't go back to the Obama elections because he was really favored to win both of those, and he did. So I don't always think that's a great comparison. But this one was certainly chaos in that one regard, to where this upcoming election is going to be chaos for a number of other reasons. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But just know, we as daily chart traders did get kind of lucky because the bodies on all of these weren't terribly big. So as far as we go, as indicator traders, we were able to pick things right back up a few days later. That's not always going to be the case. And if we get abnormally large candle bodies this time around, we will need to plan accordingly for that. So I want to talk about this now, just in case it happens. So if after election day, let's say, just for example, you have an ATR of 60 pips, and from the open to the close, you have a candle that moves somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 to 300 pips. Now, this is just an example. You're going to have to kind of use your brain on this. But that's going to make things a bit different because now it's going to wreak havoc on your indicators. It's going to mess up your confirmation indicators, your volume indicators. ATR is going to be completely out of whack for the next 14 days because you set it on 14 periods, so the next 14 trading days. And you are going to have to react accordingly. And I explain how to do that on episode 29 of the Forex Q&A podcast. I will link this down below in the description, regardless if you have a podcast player or not. All of my podcast episodes, as you know, go straight to YouTube. This is where I talk about flash crashes because at the time we had just got done seeing one and what that can do if it throws off your indicators, because that's not going to affect most traders, but indicator-heavy traders like us, it certainly will, and you need to follow the correct protocols. So look for that one down below. You can watch that after you watch this, but this is something that could happen, and I want to tackle this now as opposed to after the fact. So you guys know what to do regardless of what happens on election day in Forex land. So this whole thing is going to take 8 trading days away from you. And this should make sense to most people watching this video. But if there's anybody out there that's going to be kicking and screaming and not wanting to shut things down for 8 whole days, just understand that patience and long game is every bit a part of what we do here at the channel, even more so than algorithmic trading. It's even more important. So exhibit patience here. You're going to see setups, you're going to see volume that's very friendly, and you're really going to want to enter trades in between this 8-day period. Don't do it. You're going to see other people on social media bragging about this sick election day trade they just got a part of, and that could have been a trade that you would have been in as well. That could be 500-600 pips that could have gone into your pocket, but you did not participate because you were actually doing things correctly. Just understand, we're not them. They got their short-term win. With the mentality that they have, being so reckless as to trade on election day, for Christ's sakes, it's only going to be a matter of time before they give all of that back. Missing out on really big trades sucks. Trust me, I've talked about it. It's worse than losing. But they do happen, and you just have to deal with it and move on. So don't be tempted by what you see on social media, because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of that going on. So this time around, it's not going to be the same as every election because, for one, it's always different. All the examples I show you before are really just examples. Be prepared for something completely out of the ordinary this time around. But this one should be a longer process than the ones before because neither party wants to cede. And now, let me go ahead and show you this article real quick. You have things like this happening to where North Carolina, for example, and I think this might already be the case in some states, but they're going to accept mail-in ballots 9 days after the fact. So I don't think North Carolina is a swing state. Maybe it is. You can tell I don't follow this too much. But we're not even going to know the full results until days, maybe weeks after Election Day. This can cause absolute chaos in this country, especially as tumultuous as it is right now, and that is going to affect the markets. So it's really something to pay attention to this time. I have no doubt it's going to be an absolute circus. But when you see things like this happening, that pretty much guarantees that this is going to be an election like no other. But on top of this, everybody reacts to everything nowadays. We don't here at the channel. We're better than they are. But you're going to see a lot of craziness, and I'm sure the big banks are going to love this because now you're giving them a free pass again to move markets however they see fit, to knock out any stops they want to knock out, and to trigger any orders going the wrong way they want to trigger. You might have weeks of this. We just don't know. So just be ready for it and monitor the situation closely. I don't have a predetermined plan for this because it's something we've never experienced before. What I can say is get on Twitter. If for some reason, you want to trust my opinion on this, and I will probably tweet out the day I will resume trading if something like this were to happen. Really, when it comes down to it, traders, if you're not on Twitter because you don't like it, and I've said this before, you need to put your biases aside. I believe the 2020s are going to be absolutely crazy in a bad way, especially when it comes to money. And you are going to need to be a part of a social group that knows what they're doing. And you are not going to really find that too much on Facebook. Instagram and TikTok are net negatives in this department. I think Twitter's your best bet. And then YouTube is probably a solid second place. But if and only if, after 4 trading days beyond Election Day, price action is still going crazy as a result of this longer process, I will jump in and let you guys know, at least personally, when I will start to resume trading again myself. So, hopefully in Forex land, we have covered just about everything there is to cover based on just doing what we can before Election Day even arrives. Now, for the other markets, so other markets we cover on this channel, precious metals, oil, crypto, indices, things like that. Keep in mind, most of these things are measured in United States dollar. So the same game plan is going to apply, 4 and 4. It really is your best bet. Now, for indices, you guys know I use the weekly chart for this. So what I'm personally doing is I'm shutting down all of my trades. I have 1 trade open. So that trade's going to get shut down probably the Monday of the 25th. And then I'm going to, assuming nothing's going berserk and crazy and things are slightly coming back down to normal, I'm going to reopen again the week of the 9th. So in terms of actually trading these instruments, this is going to be the approach. Now, from a buy and hold standpoint, if you haven't seen this video, go watch this video. I did a good video on it in terms of what the best approach is if you see something you want to buy and hold. But I will say this, for the election, you're just going to have to hold. I mean, this is why you bought these things, right? You knew elections were going to come up. If you have faith in what you purchased, then prove it. Don't make any rash moves just because there's an election coming. Everything I buy and hold, I plan on having for years. So things like gold, things like Bitcoin. This is a 4, 5, 6, 7 year plan. And there's going to be elections and all these different things that occur in those 7 years. So no matter what you see happening during this time, in my opinion, your best move is to always just chill out, sit back, and do nothing. It's going to be hard to do because you might see like gold or even crypto especially just completely tank during this time. Now, that wouldn't really make any sense because things like gold and crypto are more defensive moves. They actually do well when it's chaotic because they're safety plays. But like we just got done mentioning, nothing has to make sense during Election Day or the few days before or the few days after. Banks can do whatever they want. Honestly, if I was a big bank, I would probably crash this thing too, just so I could personally get in at a better price and knock out all the weak hands. What a great time to do something like that. But then again, you just never know what's going to happen. But if things start dropping on your buy and holds, just understand it's not because those things are really, truly losing value. It's probably market manipulation, so you just got to let it play out and let things correct itself over time. I had tweeted out before that everything I'm buying and holding is, all my positions are in. They're done. I'm not making any more. Anything that I am bullish on in the future, I have already bought. So I'm not making any moves whatsoever. I will say, if something like this were to happen, and I wake up the next morning and price is still down, I might be looking to average down into my positions because I realize that this probably isn't the long-term move. If gold for some reason drops a couple $100 an ounce, I will enthusiastically purchase for a lower price. And if it keeps dropping, I'll just keep averaging down. Averaging down is not something you would ever do in Forex trading, but in the buy and hold world, if you get a gift like that, again, this is not professional advice, but I can tell you what I'm doing. If Bitcoin drops down to 7,000, I am going to buy more Bitcoin and add on to my position for sure, because I understand that the actual value didn't drop. It's just manipulation. And if you're going to give me a cheaper price on something I'm already holding for the next 5 to 7 years, I am going to take that. We can take advantage of this market manipulation as long as we're aware of it. I mean, that's pretty much the definition of how we trade here. So don't let opportunities like that pass you by. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I am not going to let opportunities like that pass me by. You do what you want, but just understand if gold drops a lot, that doesn't mean gold got less valuable. And that just means there's a lot of nonsense going on in the market. And I'm happy to say that no-nonsense Forex traders generally already understand this. So my voice is starting to go. Let's wrap this up. You just need to have a plan. I told you to have a plan before, but I never really laid it out. So now that we've laid it out, whatever your plan is, just make sure you have one and you stick to it. But avoidance and being patient, especially when you don't want to, is really going to be put to the test here. So pass that test. Enjoy the chaos and enjoy knowing that you are not going to be a part of it. But every election is different. Just because I showed you what happened in 2016 doesn't mean that's what we can really expect this time around. We can probably expect similar things to happen, but everyone is different. This one is sure to be different. So just stay up. But at the end of the day, no matter how much time you have to spend away from trading, whether it's going to be 4 and 4, whether it's going to be maybe 2 months into the future until things settle down. No matter what you see on social media, there is no substitute for being patient in your trading and being prudent in your investing. It is not going to seem that way when you see other people taking advantage of the chaos, but just understand we are not them. And when it is all said and done, we are going to come out ahead, no matter what. If you would also like to come out ahead, no matter what, you should subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell. Don't miss anything. A lot of you guys who subscribe now, check and see if your notifications are still on. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I didn't even know this video was up. Somebody turned my notifications off. Whether it was YouTube. YouTube has done a couple resets lately. I don't think anybody's really after me. I don't think the big banks care about this channel. So just double check and make sure you're subscribed and you hit the bell, because videos are going to start coming out a little more regularly now than they were before. They're not going to come out super often, but now that I'm done with the book, you're going to see videos come out at a more regular pace, I think. And you don't want to miss those, do you? What if you missed this one? What if you saw this video for the first time in December? You'd have totally missed out. Do not let that happen to you. Stay on these videos, stay diligent, keep building, and go get it.